Hello friends and welcome back to the ScrapbookPal YouTube channel. My name is Deepa from DeeZinesByD and I'm so excited to be able to share with you this card that features the Altenew Narcissus layering build-a-flower set. So this set comes with a beautiful layering stamp along with the coordinating dies, and the thing that I love most about these Altenew sets is it comes with all of these little sample ideas and the guide on the inside when you actually take the actual panel out. I'm also going to be using this Bergenia builder set because there's all these beautiful sentiments in it. For adhesives, I have some foam squares, my Tombow dot runner, my Barely Arts liquid glue, and some strong double-sided adhesive that's 1/8 of an inch in size. You could use any size that you'd like. I have some blending brushes and a whole bunch of Distress Oxide inks. I will definitely mention each color as we go along throughout the video today so that you can get the same kind of look if you were looking to do the same technique. So I'm going to start off with the actual dies, and I like using the dies first because it makes it easier to do multiple stamping, especially when you're doing a lot of little pieces. So I've cut out about 4 of the flowers, 5 of the little leaf fronds, and 3 stems. And I kept the negative pieces. And what I like to do is add some washi tape to the back of it so that it adds a bit of stickiness to the front. And then I turn it over and place it in my MISTI. So this helps me do some mass production, especially when I'm using lots of little pieces. I am doing one card, but because I'm making quite a few flowers, this comes in handy. So since I already have the die cut out, I stick it back in and I line up my first stamp. So this is the first layer, and all of the layers in the set are labeled. So for the flower, it's labeled A1, and then you'll continue from A1 through I think A7. Now, I'm using cracked pistachio ink for the first layer, and I'm deciding to use a non-conventional color palette today because I wanted to create more of like a cosmic looking flower versus a natural looking flower. So all I have to do is pull out that flower, stick in the next die cut, and stamp all of those out. Now I can go to the next color, and this one is Evergreen Bow. So this is the second layer for this outer portion of the Narcissus flower. Now, the third layer, I'll be using Lucky Clover. Now, I'm not showing you all of the multiple repeat stamping that I'm doing. I'm only showing you one flower, but every time I stamp one, I stamp the other 3 along with it. And because I've set up this negative die cut thing in my MISTI, it makes it much easier to do. As you can see here, I did the second one and I showed you how easy it is just to stick it in and stamp it out. Now I'm going to do the center portion. I'm using milled lavender for the main portion of the center of the flower. And again, I'm not showing you every single step, but I do stamp each layer about 2 to 3 times just to make sure I have a nice fully stamped image. Now for the next layer here, I'm using shaded lilac. And then I've got the third layer of the inner flower. I'm using wilted violet. And this is going to really bring out that image. You're going to see the depth and dimension, and it looks really lovely. Now, just to finish off that dimension and give it a lot more depth, I'm using Dusty Concord on the next layer, and you can see that really just completes the flower. And then you also have the stamen, the very center of the flower. So to do this, I just stamp this out by hand because it's really not, you don't really need the MISTI to do this. I'm using Rusty Hinge to fill this in. I used more of like a yellowy brown, just because yellow and purple are complementary colors and they look well together. And then I'm going to take this first layer of the center of the flower and put it back in. And actually now I'm using the shaded lilac, and I'm just going to highlight the edges. And the shaded lilac, it has more of a bluey tone. So I chose to put this on there because that bluey tone is what's going to kind of allow this flower to kind of match our background a bit. So that is the completed flower. I'll do that for all 4 of them. And then I'll move on to my leaves and stems. So actually this technique where I'm adding that little bit of shading around the inner part, you don't have to do, but you can see between these two the difference that it makes. It just really gives it like a bit of a glow. So now I have 3 layers of the leaf. There's actually a 4th outline layer, but I'm not going to do that because I want to give it like a more glowing look. I'm going to be using these 3 colors. I'm using Pine Needles, Evergreen Bow, and Lucky Clover. And then for the stem, I only need 2 colors, okay? Again, it has an outline. I'm not using the outline. I'm going to use Lucky Clover and Evergreen Bow for the stem. So for the leaves, Lucky Clover, Evergreen Bow, and Pine Needles. And then for the stems, Lucky Clover and Evergreen Bow. So all of these colors just kind of work well together, and they also go with the outer portion of the flower. It just helps everything blend together, but still has a bit of contrast because I added that pine needles in there. So I'm basically doing the same thing. I'm using the negative portion of those die cuts, and I'm stamping out the leaves and the stems. So I've done the bottom layer of the leaves, I've done the second layer, and then all I have to do is the third layer on the leaf. I can take that stem out and put it aside. So you can see that looks pretty good. And now once I have all of that done, these are all the little pieces that I end up with. Now I only end up using 3 of these flowers on the front of the card, and I keep the 4th one for the inside. So you really, if you don't want to put it on the inside, only need to do 3 of those. Now for my background, I'm actually using some blueprint sketch, and I'm concentrating the color mainly in the center of the panel. I want this lighter, more vibrant color in the center, and then I'm going to make the edges of this a little darker. So here I'm bringing in some faded jeans just to kind of pull out that blueprint sketch and create a bit more darkness on the edge. Now it's not completely dark yet because I want a gradual darkness. So I want to go from that vibrant blueprint sketch to a bit of a darker faded jeans. Once I've done that, I'm going to add some chipped sapphire to darken up those edges a little more. And then what creates that beautiful darkened edge is black soot. So it doesn't matter what color you're using. As long as you add a bit of that black soot just on the very edge, like I'm doing here, you have to add it, and then you always have to go back and blend it out with your darkest color. So the chipped sapphire is what I'll go back and blend it out with. It just really darkens that deepest color that you have without it looking black. So this is kind of my little trick here for creating these beautiful darkened edges that really highlight the center of your flower. So, sorry, the center of your card. So what this technique is doing is creating a nice glow in the center and darkened edges so your eye is drawn towards the center. Now I couldn't use my Oxide inks without using some water here to create this beautiful speckled type, rainy type effect. It just adds to that whole cosmic glowy effect. Like these flowers are out in space or something. So I'm so excited. I don't know if you know about this, but ScrapbookPal now has VersaFine Clear ink pads in the shop. I've been waiting for this for quite a while, and I love my VersaFine Clear ink pads, especially the Nocturne. I only have to stamp that once, and it stamps perfectly. It is much better than the typical VersaFine ink pads. And the thing with the VersaFine Clear is it actually stays wetter longer, just a little bit longer. So you can actually stamp a few things out and then heat emboss it if you wanted to. But that also means if you do use this ink, if you don't wait long enough, it can smudge. So if you need to kind of move forward in your stamping and your process, always make sure to add a bit of heat to it to set that up so that it doesn't smudge. So anyways, as you can see here, I'm arranging my flowers in the center of my card panel, and I took the flowers and I basically added them with some foam squares. I only added one little one in the center to begin with, just because I wanted to get the positioning of all of my little leaves before I permanently adhere those down. So I've got those there, I'm adding the stems, and now I've kind of cut some of the little leaf fronds in half, and I'm kind of just positioning them, playing with it, and kind of seeing what works well and what looks best. The 2 leaf fronds at the bottom I did add with foam squares because they are at the very bottom. I kind of wanted them to stand out just a little bit more. So now you can see I'm going back. Now that I know where everything is, I'm adding some more foam squares just to give it a little bit more support. And then I've cut off all of those overhanging edges at the bottom to create a clean edge there. So like I said, I'll take more of these little squares and stick them underneath. Now I'm using the smallest squares because I've actually run out of the bigger squares, but this foam square pack actually comes with a variety of big, medium, and small squares for you to use. So Now I'm taking my sentiment that I stamped out. Now remember, this sentiment was from the Brighenia stamp set that I showed you earlier. And I didn't actually heat emboss this. I just stamped it with that black VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. And now I've added it to my panel with the foam squares. And just to add a bit more of that cosmic look, I'm taking a white gel pen and I'm just kind of creating little dots. And I'm not creating the same size dot. I'm making some small, I'm making some large, just to create some variation. Now I'm adding some of that strong double-sided adhesive. I'm using my Tombow Mono dot runner to add a bit more adhesive there, and I attach it with just the Tombow Mono adhesive. This allows me to move my panel around a bit so that I can get it exactly where I want it. Then I go in between the panel and the card base. I pull off that release paper from the really sticky adhesive, and now I can really stick that down and it's not going anywhere. Now, as I said, I wasn't done there. I like to kind of add a little bit to the inside of the card. So I took the extra stem flower, and I think there's a couple leaves left. So I added those there. And that just kind of ties in the front to the inside a little bit. Now my final step is to add just a little bit of bling to this card. I've got a lot going on in the background there with those beautiful droplets and the white jelly roll pen. So I'm just going to add a few of these Pinkfresh Studio Glacier Jewels, just to add just a little bit of shine there. And I've added mostly on the background and then one on the leaf there for a bit of fun. So that's my final card for you today. I hope you all enjoyed this tutorial and that you were inspired to use these products to create some cards of your own. This featured stamp set and the coordinating dies come together as a set, and they're available in the ScrapbookPal store, and all the links have been listed in the description. Please don't forget to subscribe to the ScrapbookPal YouTube channel and hit the notification bell to be notified of future tutorials. I really hope that you've been able to pick up some tips from this video, and I hope to see you all again next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.